Welcome to another episode of EQ Unlocked, where we talk about emotional intelligence and the nervous system. Today is going to be a good subject for me anyway. I like it. I appreciate it. Today we're going to talk about discipline. Discipline is not willpower. It's regulation. So we're going to entitle this episode "Discipline Isn't What You Think and Why You Keep Falling Off." So discipline is not motivation. It is not willpower. It is not trying hard. Discipline is the ability to stay regulated long enough to follow through. And so recently I went through, and actually I can't even say I went through, I can say I'm in a season of my life where for the first time in my life, I saw the value of discipline. And not only did I just see the value of discipline, but I seek to gain more discipline in my life. It all started when I started going to the gym, and I realized how good it really felt going to the gym and just being there and being present and making sure I followed through my routine. That felt really good. But then I started exploring all the other areas of my life where discipline was not it wasn't in place. And so it really got me to question why that was, and how I was suffering really from the lack of discipline. So let's get into it. Let's get started. Most people think they lack discipline. They don't. What really happens is they lack the ability to stay regulated when it matters. Because dysregulation, what does that lead to? And well, dysregulation leads to chaos. Dysregulation leads to making choices that aren't necessarily beneficial long term. Dysregulation leads to seeking comfort when, you know, doing the hard thing is not what we want to do. Because to keep it all the way real with you, if discipline was about willpower, you just decide once and stick to it. It'd be that simple. But that's not what happens. So often we start strong and then something shifts. And that shift isn't laziness, it's your nervous system. So, what do I mean by that? I mean, take for example, let's say you're doing. I'm going to go back to my last marriage. Okay, when I met that young lady, I was doing very well in business. I had actually started a little mentoring business, and I had taken over the budget in two different counties for my mentoring services and those who are contracted with me. And so I was doing really well. But then when she came into my life, I very quickly let everything go. Now, the situations that led to that was not like it wasn't just like, oh, I'm in love and I'm just gonna let everything fall to pieces. There were many other circumstances that took place. But at the end of the day, it was lack of discipline in many different areas of life that led to that downfall. And so as this new person and these children came into my life, my nervous system readjusted. And what its goal was simply to keep stay stable. And because I hadn't trained myself to do that under these circumstances, it led to chaos internally. And as a result, chaos ensued externally. And again, it wasn't just like, oh, hey, she came in my life and now I got all these new responsibilities. There was a lot going on there. But none of that matters. What really matters is the fact that if my nervous system was regulated, I would have handled that very, very differently. So let's get back to this discipline thing, right? People rely on motivation, which is a very much a temporary state. And then when stress hits, well, that state changes. And when the state changes, the behaviors change. So you don't lose discipline, you actually lose access to it. And so, what does that look like? Well, for some people, it might be dieting, right? I know that at my heaviest, like I said, I was around 500 pounds. And when I was 500 pounds, I would tell myself again and again and again, oh, I'm going to lose this weight. I'm going to stop eating like trash. I'm going to do all these wonderful things. And I was motivated for 3 days, right? Motivated for 3 days when I was trying to Atkins diet, and it worked. It worked. That motivation worked for 3 whole days until something came up in life and I didn't know how to handle it. So the answer to me becoming regulated was, well, let me eat because that calms me down, right? Let me just go grab some fast food because, oh, wait a minute, that feels better than feeling. I know that what that will do for me. Now, what I couldn't see in that moment was that all that junk I was eating made me feel like crap as well. But in the moment, it felt good. In the moment, it felt really good. And so we can apply this to anything in our lives. And you can apply this to nicotine. You can apply this to sexual relationships. You can apply this to sleeping. I mean, you can apply this to literally anything in your life. And so when the situation changes, right, and our state changes of our nervous system, we seek to find that baseline, our baseline. And so our brain is by default it's going to go to whatever has worked because it's the reality. And so that's what it looks like. So let's put it in a real, real, real time situation. So you feel good and you make a plan, right? Let's just say, for example, that plan is I'm going to have a better communication with my mate, right? And you start executing. You're a little bit more calm and you're a little bit more relaxed and everything's going good, right? But then your mate, they say something that it knocks you out of sync with this new person you're trying to become, and maybe it reminds you of an old wound. Maybe they say, you know, you're so. Why don't you just do this? You're so lazy, and maybe that word is a trigger for you. I don't know, but then that stress and that discomfort shows up, and all of a sudden, the nervous system is activated. And so, what do? You go back into defensive mode, or you're no longer focused on good communication, but you're focused on protecting yourself. And so you start going back at them, right? You start saying, well, if you wouldn't do this, then, or if you would get up and help me, or if you would, right? And that's how the cycle reinitiates itself. So it's not that you're lacking discipline. It's that something happened to dysregulate your nervous system. So then you avoid, you delay, or you quit. And every time we give into that, every time we avoid the better communication, every time we delay it by going silent, every time we quit, we're reaffirming to our nervous system, our brain, that, oh, this can't be us. We can't do this thing. We can't communicate better. So again, your plan didn't fail, your state changed. So discipline is really about state management. And when you're regulated, you're focused, you're clear, you're consistent. And actually, I'm not going to say I'm going to say we're, myself included. When I'm regulated, I'm focused, I'm clear, I'm consistent. But when I'm dysregulated, I'm distracted, I'm avoidant, I'm impulsive. We're distracted, avoidant, impulsive. And I really, for a long time, I've focused in on this word discipline. And obviously, I don't know about you, but when I think about the word discipline, I think about the root word, and which is looks like disciple, right? And what does it mean to be a disciple? And this is not a biblical talk, so don't get on me just yet. Disciple is nothing more than a teacher. So discipline is supposed to teach you. It's not supposed to be a state. At least that's the way I like to look at it. So what is this thing that I'm doing teaching? Discipline is what behavior looks like when your system is stable. So I like to use discipline to train my state. And so this can lead us, or this leads me to the next part, right? The next part of the equation, and why you know better, but don't do better. And so I'm going to go back in a time period in my life that was really tough for me, right? And this system or this time period was, and I know I've talked about this a lot, but when I was having to go to court every few months when I had custody of my daughter. And so I knew better, right? But I didn't do better because inevitably inevitably, every time that paperwork from the court came, I knew that there would be more lies hurled at me. I knew that I would be on the defensive. And as soon as I got the paperwork, I was defensive against everyone and everything, right? And my experience had taught me that the only way to be safe in courts or when I was dealing with the system was to be defensive. And so what happened? Because that's a huge activation of my nervous system, right? Well, my awareness was there. I knew that I couldn't go into the courts and just cuss them out, right? That wasn't going to work out well. But what did happen was execution disappeared under pressure. So I was still doing all the things I had to do, but I was doing it robotically. So what do I mean by that? I mean that I still had to take my daughter to school. I still had to make sure she was taken care of, and the bills were paid. She was fed. I was fed, right? But I was doing it mechanically, so I was missing a lot of pivotal moments because while I was there physically present, my nervous system was in fight, flight, or freeze mode. And this disgusting cycle repeated itself every 3 to 6 months, and it would last the entire time. What do I mean by that? I mean, I would get a notice that, hey, we have court again. And then I would stay stuck in this fight or flight mode for the next 3 months until court was over. And it didn't matter how much I knew that what was being hurled at me was lies. It didn't matter how many times the courts decided that I was never found guilty of anything. I never held in contempt. I was never, none of that ever happened. The reality of it is, though, is because I had lost a child before this one, right, from the same woman in this in a situation, I was stuck in fight or flight mode, and so that's where that execution disappeared under pressure because I hadn't dealt with the pressure that came before this current circumstance. And sadly, I wish I could sit here and tell you that I grew past that. I wish I could tell you that, oh yeah, I recognized this at some point in my court battles, and everything was all well and good. But that would be a lie. I didn't learn this until after I had lost everyone and everything that mattered to me, right? And so once I lost everyone, I then decided to do something that I should have done many years prior. I started working on myself. And so I realized that if I was regulated, well, then I became aware of the real problem. And after I was aware of the real problem, then I could start making better choices about how to handle it. Because at the end of the day, if you're not regulated, awareness doesn't turn into action. It just turns into more chaos. And that was the cycle that I was stuck in for so long. And again, in my mind at that time, I thought I was doing the right thing. I truly did. But what I didn't realize is that fear was driving me. The fear of losing yet another child was driving all my behaviors. Now, I wish I could go back and change things and do things differently, but I can't. But what I can do is help others who face situations. And you might be thinking, well, Matthew, what does your child in that custody situation have to do with me at work? Because it's the same system that's driving the behaviors. Your nervous system is the same system that's driving the behaviors, regardless if you realize it or not, right? And so then we go into what actually builds discipline. And this is very simple. Short, repeatable action, not big goals. Short, repeatable actions. And so here's something I want to just put out there to you. I want to put out to all the people listening because I really appreciate you and I really want you to walk away with tools that can reshape your nervous system. And of course, yeah. Anyway, short, repeatable actions. Regulate first, act second. Re- you have to reduce the decision load and focus on recovery, not perfection. So what does this look like in real time? Okay. When I started dealing with all these things that I just discussed with you, as far as the truth about court, the truth about the lies that had been told about me, the truth about the loss that I experienced, I very quickly to realize, well, I shouldn't even say quickly. I should say I came to realize how these things were impacting me. And so I would go to court, and I thought when I went to court that it was the sight of my ex-wife and her current husband who that was impacting me. And so what did I did? I did a little thing called exposure therapy, right? I would put their picture up, and actually I made a video of their picture on, and I reprogrammed my mind to no longer see them as a threat or something bad or vicious, but I retrained my mind to see them as just people. And that was it. Because truth be told, I can honestly say that haven't been afraid of any man in a very long time. A very long time. But that didn't stop my nervous system from being activated from the things that were told, the lies that were spread, those consequences. So I implemented this short, repeatable actions. I watched that video and I would just breathe. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. And I would watch the video and I would see them, right? And I started creating a process to where all of a sudden they weren't threatening at all. All of a sudden they were just people. And so guess what? Now I could go into court and now I could face these people despite whatever lies they might have came and told at or told about me rather. And I could breathe through it because they were just people. Right. And, and to be honest with you, I don't think they're bad people. Right. They were simply doing what they felt was necessary to regulate their own nervous system. Now, I didn't understand that for a long time. But once I understood that, well, imagine how much that increased my peace, right? Imagine how much that increased my peace by seeing, wait a minute, these people, specifically this woman who hurt me so immensely, right? She's not actually trying to hurt me. She's just trying to protect herself. And that brought in a whole different meaning. So then when I regulated first and then I started acting, well, I reduced my decision load because no longer was I thinking, okay, well, how am I going to navigate this situation? I was started thinking, what's the best solution for my daughter? What's the best possible decision I can make to benefit my daughter in this situation? And so I eliminated an entire realm of thoughts simply by regulating first. And so what does this mean for you in your life in real time? Well, if there's a situation or a person who comes up in your mind and they create internal conflict, they create internal anxiety, I'm not going to suggest you do the same thing I did. But what I am going to suggest is that when thoughts of that person or that situation come up, force yourself to sit down for 30 seconds and just breathe. Let those feelings exist inside you. Don't try and rush them away. Don't try and think them away. Don't try and distract yourself. Don't try and keep busy. Let them have their space inside you. And the only thing you need to control while they take up this space is your breath. 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out. And if you can do that, I promise you what you'll find over time is that these things that are activating your nervous system so intensely will in very short order start to lose their power. But you have to take steps to do the work. And that's where that discipline comes in at. You're regulating your nervous system through that discipline. Here's the truth most people avoid. They don't actually struggle with discipline. They struggle with staying in discomfort without leaving. And that's the real work, my friends. And let me repeat that. You don't struggle with discipline. You struggle with staying in discomfort without leaving it. Because nobody likes to be uncomfortable. None of us like to be uncomfortable. Matter of fact, if we like to be if we like to be uncomfortable, we would get a lot further a lot quicker. But we do everything in our power to avoid discomfort. But if you're listening to me, I'm assuming that, you've probably seen some quotes or online about no growth happens outside the comfort zone or, something to that effect. And that's true. Growth is uncomfortable. It is out and out miserable at times. But my friends, I am here to tell you it is so worth it. It is so worth it. But that's the real work. That's what it comes down to. So I've had a lot of people reach out to me about being guests on my show. And I just want to, I really appreciate everybody reaching out. I appreciate everybody. I mean, I've had, you know, everybody from owners and doctors to just all types of people reach out to be a guest on this show. And I really appreciate that. And I just want to say thank you because that means that the word is spreading. But today I got a message. And essentially, that message read that this person felt like they were worth it. This person realized that the small actions they took every day, they matter. This person realized that, life can be beautiful and that they're only going to grow into that who they want to be by being uncomfortable. And it helped me to appreciate how much and how important it is to know that your story matters. And so if you're a social worker, if you're a teacher, if you are, you work with kids or let's say it doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. If you have a story and you want to share it, I'd like to be a part of that. And obviously, obviously I expect to get more feedback than I can handle. And I'm okay with that. But what we need to do is we need to get some real voices out here. So I need you guys to tell me what voices are going to help you to become the best version of yourself. I talk about nulls, and if you check out the YouTube clips and things like that, you'll see how nulls has helped other people. And I know it probably seems like I'm all over the place right now, but stick with me. And so if you're having a problem reaching this point where, okay, I want to make changes, but I simply can't do it. I just can't do it on my own. I invite you to consider using nulls. And I invite you to go in and look into videos on EQ Unlocked 2 on YouTube. There you'll see people. You'll see clips of people who have used it, and you'll see the benefits that they've experienced. And I would strongly encourage you to consider getting a version of nulls for yourself. Because nulls is what really helped me with everything in my life. And it's pretty amazing, and I'm pretty proud of it. And so this is where that discipline thing comes in at, right? Are you willing to dedicate 7 minutes a day to yourself? Because discipline isn't about consistently and constantly forcing yourself. It's about becoming someone who can stay. Someone who can stay in effort, someone who can stay in discomfort, someone who can stay in a moment long enough to follow through. Because when we can stay, our life starts to change. So as always, you guys, if you want to understand why you fall off and where your baseline actually is, go take that regulation baseline assessment at MatthewFStevens.com. Of course, I'll respond to you if you've already done it. I appreciate that. And so at the end of the day, I really appreciate you becoming the best version of yourself, and appreciate all the sharing, the liking, the subscribing. You guys have been supporting me, and the numbers are just continuously showing this. And so, again, I go back to that point. If you have a story, or if you want to share a story, I encourage you to reach out and let's get together. Let's talk about some things. Let's figure out how we're going to help each other. Because as separate as we are, as for all the differences we have as mankind, we all have the same nervous system, which means we can all be helped the same way. Our brain's pathway of getting there, that might look a little different, but we can all help each other. So I appreciate you joining me for another episode of EQ Unlocked. I appreciate you, showing up and sharing the message. If this episode really hits you, and I definitely want you to walk away knowing, if you've ever never known this before, but you're not broken. We've just been approaching this thing the wrong way. And that right there is the shift. So as always, be amazing, be you, and thank you for joining me for another episode of EQ Unlocked. Catch you on the flip side.
As this episode comes to a close, take a moment to notice what stood out for you. Emotional intelligence isn't about having all the answers. It's about building awareness. understanding yourself and the people around you, and choosing how you respond, especially when things feel difficult. Growth happens through reflection and practice, not pressure or perfection. If this conversation supported you, consider sharing it with someone who may benefit from it as well. To explore more tools and resources around emotional intelligence and personal development, connect with EQ Unlocked and Nulls. Until next time, remember, better awareness leads to better choices, and better choices lead to a better life. This is EQ Unlocked.